This is Gingy Station between Walgett and Lightning Ridge, where Jane Pye has for many years now been cataloguing culturally modified trees of all kinds. Hello and welcome back to Curiosity Mine. This video is about a topic that some may find sensitive, but I'm hopeful that it will be addressed in a manner that is respectful to the people and cultures involved, and also in a way that invites thoughtful consideration of the subject. I have, for the most part, steered away from telling stories relating to the traditional owners of country and their culture, because I feel that those stories are not my stories to tell. However, I was recently made aware of some very positive action being taken in the Lightning Ridge area to preserve some truly wonderful pieces of ancient and lasting culture that I think we can all agree we do not want to be lost, ignored, or misunderstood. I met up with Jane and Rebel, who you might remember from the Syntropic Garden videos. Check those out here. There's quite a list of those now. And we hopped in a buggy to talk about culturally modified trees. Culturally modified trees, or CMTs, is a name given to various types of trees that have been physically altered by the indigenous people of an area. And I'm using the word indigenous here because it's the right word in this context. Culturally modified trees are a worldwide phenomenon which occur in Canada, United States, Australia, Scandinavia, and other places, and they're recognised in all of those places as the work of indigenous people who have been living in those places for thousands of years. You may already be familiar with a couple of types of Australian culturally modified trees, which you'll see in northern New South Wales and in other parts of Australia. Among those are scar trees, which are these trees with large gouges missing from the outer bark, where the bark has been removed years or decades or maybe centuries ago for use as a coolamon, which is kind of like a bowl or a tray, or as a canoe, or as a shield, or as any number of other uses. These trees are considered sacred and respected, and they form landmarks in the landscape and hold special meaning for the Aboriginal people of the area. Another relatively common and recognisable type of modified tree is the ring tree, which is where a branch is altered to loop around, forming a contiguous ring.
See how they've taken that branch across and up, tied it on there.
Some of the rings are quite small and some are huge. These also form landmarks, often to indicate sources of water and have sacred and significant meanings. Jane showed us some ring trees surrounding a pair of wells, one an Aboriginal well and the other a European well, within a few metres of each other.
That's the Aboriginal well, and that's the European well. There's no way the Europeans found that on their own, found the water. They had to be shown.
This depression in the ground is the well. If you were to dig here, you would find water.
So they used to have some sort of gadget, some sort of hoist arrangement with water. Then it went into troughs.
The timbers are what's left of the structure that would have supported the hoist over the European well.
But by the time they sunk bores, they had no need for this. There's coolamons here made in 2015. So this one's pretty well closed, so that's been 10 years.
Okay.
10 years old coolamon.
And because of the significance of water, people need it to survive, this area is marked with a number of ring trees and scar trees.
I was saying about red gums, closing up quickly. You only see this because it's got like light bark, it loses its bark.
Other less common types of modified trees include trees that are trained into a twisted shape and trees that are otherwise modified into other ceremonial shapes, or even some practical shapes and purposes like this area where the trees have been modified to create shelter.
You see the cut there, Russell? So they've cut it across, but it's still alive.
Yeah.
And they've made like a crossbar or a kind of like a tent pole across here, and this bit of the wilga they've put back in there. They've made a ring from here into here. They've tied that wilga branch in for a long time to get that to happen. This cut is more recent, so they've improved the shelter as they've gone along.
Another group of modified tree types, you could argue culturally modified, but that's a stretch for a number of reasons, is the explorer's tree or the survey tree or the number tree. These are trees that have been modified probably over 100 years ago by European explorers and surveyors.
It's the number 3 tree. So that's a surveyor, and there's more numbers than the 3, but it's grown over the other numbers. It's got an arrow.
So
It's got an arrow. It's a government arrow. If you found out when the surveyor was here, you could actually measure that rate of regrowth.
Yeah.
But this tree's in the middle of a plain. He's not going to grow as fast as trees in the swamp or...
These number trees are certainly not sacred in the same sense as Aboriginal modified trees, beyond their historical significance and the normal reverence that Aboriginal people have for all trees themselves, regardless of who has carved something into them. Now, this part is important. Of all of the types of trees that I've just mentioned, only scar trees and survey or explorer trees are protected. Ring trees and trees manipulated into shapes and trees modified to create shelters are not protected by law. And maybe they should be. Jane has tracked thousands of trees, developing a massive database of tree types, modification types, locations, and other statistics. Among the trees that Jane has tracked are some 860 plus trees that she terms trees in trees, or modifications where a second species of tree, a guest tree, is grown inside the structure of a host tree, resulting in a kind of grafted symbiotic relationship between the two trees.
So trees in trees are, well, it's my expression, because nobody knows anything about them really, is when they've planted a scrub tree like a wilga inside a eucalypt, usually a box tree. So that wilga itself's probably 200 years old. It's very hard getting any academics to show any interest at all, because they tend to think that it's just a result of bird shit. So the bird's eaten the wilga seeds and then it's perched on the tree, and then the bird shit's gone down inside the crotch and it's just rained and germinated and grown into another tree. Which in a semi-arid area is just crazy. It's just a made-up thing to try and excuse people from actually acknowledging what the skill and sophistication of the Aboriginal occupants. So there was a white thing in here that I was thinking was fungus. And Rhonda was here, Rhonda Ashby, and a friend of hers, and she said, Jane, I think that might be a bone. So when you get a bone in a tree or bone anywhere, you've got to involve the police, and they came out. And the photographer they came out with a liaison guy. And the photographer, was as close as possible. The bone was about there. And took the photo, and then she sent the photos to Dubbo, to the forensics.
Yep.
People in Dubbo, and they said, it's actually like it's growing back. And they said, yes, it's a bone, but it's not human. So I said, oh, okay, so I can have it, take it out? I said, yeah, fine. So I did. I took it out and I sent it to the US because I'm still suspicious. And when it got over there, this macro botanist said, it's not a bone. Well, what is it? She said, it's not even a shoot or a root. It's like a connection between epiphytes. Like these are technically an epiphyte. So it's the connection bit.
A plant or tree growing inside another plant or tree is referred to as an epiphyte. Epi meaning in addition to, phyte or phyton meaning plant. Epiphyte. Epiphytes are not overwhelmingly common, but they do happen. Something like 10% of forest plants are epiphytes, but those are almost always the tiniest of plants, mosses, lichens, ferns, little organisms that wedge into the bark or hollows of trees and remain there. Natural epiphytes occur mostly in tropical forests, where the entire environment is more conducive to growth. The trees in trees epiphytes that Jane has documented are all occurring near Lightning Ridge in semi-arid rural Australia, where it's hard to get anything to grow deliberately. Check out this video for the story of the incredible lengths that Rebel has gone to get a tiny patch of near tropical forest to grow at Lightning Ridge. It's statistically very uncommon for trees to form epiphytes and grow inside other trees. The sheer number of examples of trees inside trees found by Jane in these areas is astronomically unlikely as a natural occurrence.
And also they've often got another modification, like this one's got the big scar here.
Jane has worked with local Gamilaroi Uluru elders and other community members to understand the cultural meaning behind these trees. The trees are most definitely modified by humans, and the trees themselves have a cultural significance in that they represent, at the most basic level, life and death. Trees hold knowledge on country. There are long traditions of trees symbolizing birth. Trees are planted to recognize a birth, and death. Trees in trees are understood to have been planted when somebody dies. Trees are the pages of a story.
There's one of two here, so your twists and your spirals are, sometimes spirals are cut in. It's how you sort of got them earth to heaven, or not heaven, the sky camp. So they scar it. See how it goes around there, and it's like a conduit sort of from this life to the next. So the only cultural information is Sir Alan Tighe saying that when somebody important died, they planted a tree inside the dead parts of an old tree. So the dead parts, like a broken branch or a crotch of some sort. And he said they didn't water them. And he was told when he was about 15 by a fellow, like he was in his 70s at the time. That's the only cultural knowledge we have, unfortunately, and that's, it's sad that we don't know more.
The trees that Jane has mapped are also located on song lines, which are traditional paths through the landscape that are recorded in songs and oral histories and passed down through the generations. And these trees are connected to that in both the spiritual and sacred sense and in the physical and practical senses. Jane has identified numerous combinations of trees with different species of host trees and guest trees and different numbers of guest trees within the same host.
Some have more than one guest, but usually they're same species, or two in the same crotch. Where they grow out, that's what they call a crotch. So here, this is a very old one of these. He's only a little bush, but he's medicinal, and that's his crotch. And that other crotch up there, it's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece in botany, in botanical engineering.
Yeah.
So we've looked at a surveyor's tree, the one earlier with the number 3 on it.
It's a $10,000 fine to knock over a surveyor's tree.
Is it the same fine if you knock over a
Aboriginal scar tree?
Scar tree.
Well, actually, a scar tree, it is a big fine, but trees in trees, ring trees, are not counted as culturally modified trees.
Yes.
Anything you'd like to change?
Oh, I certainly would.
Yeah. Okay.
And that sums up why I'm making this video. Jane and I and the local Aboriginal elders and community members who have been involved in Jane's research would like to see some recognition for these different classes of culturally modified trees. We would like to see some research done into them by people who are willing to dedicate the time and resources to doing the hard work, verifying and documenting and putting together the puzzle of the scar trees, the ring trees, the trees in trees in a way that recognises the cultural, historical and botanical significance of these trees in a respectful and meaningful way. Jane has logged the trees and collected a tremendous amount of data and has written journal articles which are published online. There'll be links below. We need academics and researchers on board to take the next steps. We want to see these trees, which are, again, undoubtedly human-modified sacred objects dating back centuries, recognised and preserved in the same way that we recognise and preserve a tree that a white public servant carved a 3 into 150 years ago. And if it turns out that any of the assumptions made so far are wrong, well, that's the job of the academics and their research to determine, and we'll learn something in the process. If not, as Jane and I are inclined to think, this is a genuine gesture towards protecting a piece of Aboriginal cultural history that needs to be protected. Jane has a website, scartrees.com.au, which I'll link below. I recommend checking the website out. It's beautiful, and Jane's work is incredibly respectful and treats these trees both as cultural objects and as wonderful examples of botany and horticulture that have survived for decades or centuries in this semi-arid environment, carrying their cultural significance into the future. If you can help, please reach out via the contact details on either scartrees.com.au or curiositymine.com. As always, I am more than happy for healthy and productive discussion in the comments section, but please keep it civilized and respectful. I've been very lucky to have had a very well-behaved comments section for 10 years on YouTube now, and I acknowledge how rare that is, but let's try to maintain that. This video was made with the help of Jane Pye and Rebel Black. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing to Curiosity Mine on YouTube and maybe even supporting the channel directly via Patreon. The link is in the description, and thank you for watching.